Right, Northern Cleft Foundation, a 10-year-old based charity helping underprivileged children with clefts of the lip and palate, provides surgery for children and adults in India who otherwise would be unable to access specialised surgery. And a cleft palate is perhaps not a very common occurrence in the UK, so it may not be so well understood, but it can seriously affect a person's day-to-day living, make eating, breathing and swallowing difficult, and a simple procedure can solve that. For those who cannot afford this surgery, the Northern Cleft Foundation in many respects are saviours. And to tell us more about that before she actually flies off at the end of the week to India is Julia Patterson. So Julia, a very good morning to you.
Thank you. Good morning.
And I must admit, and I was just saying to you, presenting Chat City, I meet so many people from all kinds of backgrounds who are doing so many things around the world that often we don't get to hear about. So, Julia, how did this begin for you?
Well, I work as a clinical educator in my day-to-day job, and one of the hospitals that I work at has quite a few doctors and nurses and theatre staff who'd been along to India with the Northern Cleft Foundation. I was always very interested in it, and I asked to become involved. And strangely enough, you'd think they would be queuing up for people to join, but in actual fact, there is a waiting list to join this group. It's such a small group, but it's also a group that's developed over the last 13 years now, and it was begun by a consultant anaesthetist from Blackburn Royal Infirmary called George Tetraswamy. And Dr. Tetraswamy went along to India and noted that cleft palate there, I don't think there's much greater incidence in India than there is in the UK.
No.
But the fact is that there are large areas where there is no specialist surgery for these children, so the numbers build up. And I was really interested and asked if I could be involved. And I think it took a couple of years before there was a space for me. And now I've been going, this has been my 4th trip to India. And you were saying it is surprising how many people get involved with travelling overseas. But I think we feel quite privileged to be able to do that, and I certainly do. And I look forward to going to India once or twice a year with this particular group. I really enjoy working out there.
So, the first time you went...
Yes.
What do you remember? You know, you get off the plane.
Yes.
Where did you fly to?
We flew first of all to Mumbai and then got a small flight to Nagpur. Nagpur's I think it's the 12th largest city in India with a population of 4.5 million. Very much an agricultural city. And India, for anybody who's never been there, is always a culture shock. The heat and the strong smells of spices and other smells is quite shocking when you first arrive. But I think it's mainly the differences that make it so attractive. The people that we met and that we meet every year are very poor. They have very little, generally very happy, and always so pleased to see us and so helpful. So although the culture shock is very great, within a few days you look beyond that, I think, and start to see India as a whole. It's very culturally rich and spiritually very rich. And we actually work in a small mission hospital in Nagpur, and they hand over the hospital and the theatres to us. They do their surgery at night so that we can do our surgery in the day, and they very much hand over everything to us and support us enormously.
Right. So do you go out as a team, and who is part of the team?
Right, it's a good question. And it's begun, as I say, by Dr. George Tetraswamy, and we have with Dr. George several other consultant anaesthetists, plus registrars and learning registrars who want to come along and see how this kind of surgery and anaesthesia is carried out in India, because everything changes. The oxygen supply isn't always guaranteed. The anaesthetic machines are often very old. I work in the recovery area, recovering the babies post-operatively, and it's very hard to not have the monitoring that we're used to, so we tend to use our clinical skills very much, the basic look, listen and feel skills. We also have some excellent cleft surgeons, Vicky Beale from Manchester Children's Hospital, several of the surgeons from Alder Hay, and also from a couple of other major centres in the UK. So it's very much a northern charity with northern doctors, surgeons, anaesthetists and theatre staff from Chorley, Preston, Wigan, Blackburn, and a few people from further afield, but we tend to bring in people who join us once and then stay. So We've got a core team of about 40 people, and not everybody can go every year, obviously, due to other commitments, but we try and take a core team who has the experience to go each year.
And often people who are giving up their own time, etc., to go out there to do this work.
Yes, most of us do tend to go in our annual leave. Some of the doctors manage to get some study leave and sabbaticals, but the majority of us, 2 or 3 weeks a year is the commitment we like to say that we'll make to the charity. Plus, we have to get our own funding. We each have to raise at least £1,500 each. Through various fundraising activities. I'm running out of ideas now. I'm frightened I might have to jump out of a plane next year. But we've done all sorts of things, sponsored cycles and other things to raise money. So if each of us raise £1,500, that covers our transport out there, our accommodation. And one operation costs about £130. So we did... We've now done 820 operations in total, and we hope to do 100 this next 2 weeks in Nagpur.
And are they mainly or always children?
Surprisingly, no. The last 2 trips, we've actually managed to do quite severe cleft deformities on operations on a 63-year-old gentleman who happened to turn up, and an 80...
Just turned up?
He arrived, he heard that we were there.
Wow.
And walked in and said, "Can you do anything for me?" He had a really severe abnormality, which he'd lived with all of his life, and as you say, unable to talk properly, never been able to smile, never really been able to eat normal food. And one of our surgeons, Dr. Dave Drake, did an amazing job, and 24 hours later this man's life was completely transformed.
Wow. And how do you find out about the children, or how are they referred?
We're very lucky. The Rotary Club in India help us enormously. And in Nagpur, the Rotary Club of Nagpur West, while we're home doing our day jobs, they go out up to 200 miles distance, drop out pamphlets in the surrounding villages with often just pictorial messages on, because many people are unable to read and write. And leave a date whereby a doctor will go to that village and assess the children who may be suitable for surgery. And then they gather them all together in January and bring them in stages to the hospital. And they provide transport, food for the family, and they do a great job to help us. We couldn't really manage without them. They've been enormously supportive.
And I take it some of the families must travel a distance to get there.
Hundreds of miles in buses. They don't have their own transport, so again, the Rotary lay on buses and other transport for them. And Indian families are very close, and they don't just turn up mum and baby. It's mum and baby and grandma and 4 other children. And of course, we only supply a bed for the patient and their mother, so dad and granddad and grandma and all the other children sleep on the floor. And the place is very lively, obviously, as you can imagine, all families waiting for the surgery, and children having pre-op and post-op assessments. But we manage it, and it's quite surprising with the help of the Rotary how we do manage to get through quite a lot of operations. And
what about after the operation? I mean, how long would the child stay there, or is there any kind of follow-up afterwards?
We think this is quite important. So until a child is able to eat and drink normally, and we're happy that their airway is secure and that they're able to function fairly normally, then they wouldn't be transferred back to their homes. But probably 2 days is about the longest we keep them, but there is always a team in India who can help if there are any problems. And we often see them the following year, because some children will have a lip replaced, lip repaired in 1 year and a palate the next, so that we come to see them twice, which is really lovely, because we actually follow up our children. And it's lovely to see the parents again when they come back, and, you know, the difference that it's made. Because in India, 46% of children are underweight, and a lot of them are malnourished. Many children under 3 are malnourished. And this gives them the opportunity to eat properly and to grow and to be able to go to school. It makes such a difference.
And I was looking at there's quite a few, a really good video on the website from Nagpur, and issues around the children who were bullied at school, of course, because of the way they look.
Because they're different, absolutely. Children don't learn to be sensitive, do they, until they're older, and quite often children are kept away from school because of bullying, or the parents feel that they're not fit enough to go to school. So many children don't get the opportunity to have education until this correction's done.
So you fly out on Friday.
Yes.
Does the team fly out, or do you meet when you get there?
We try and meet up in Manchester if we can, and we do quite a bit of planning on the aeroplane going over, looking at how we're going to run lists, and but some people join us in London. But on the whole, we try. The majority of the team will be there on Friday morning, early morning, and we tend to choose fairly economical flights, so we can sometimes take a good old 26 hours to get to
Wow.
India, because we'll have quite long stopovers. So it does give us the opportunity to meet up, to chat again, and during the year we meet up as well and do fundraising and other activities.
And then you'll see the children and families more or less within a couple of days?
As soon as we arrive at Nagpur, we pop our bags into the hotel, and then a group of anaesthetists and surgeons go off to the hospital and look at the children who will be operated on the next day. And then we'll go in after we've had a brief rest and set up our areas for surgery and recovery, and we're ready to go the next day.
And you yourself, did you say you work with very young children, with babies?
Yes, my background is critical care, and I teach critical care and resuscitation, and I am a midwife as well, although I haven't practiced midwifery for a long time. So I actually take the babies straight from theatre as soon as they've recovered from their anaesthesia and wake up. I take them into the recovery area and ensure that their airways are safe and they can swallow and be fairly safe before we send them back to the ward. But we also have on the ward cleft specialist nurses who then take over with feeding, helping mum to feed a child who's probably never been able to use a bottle before, or even feed properly. So we have two excellent cleft specialist nurses who are on the ward, again, from very early morning till late night, helping the children to start to feed properly. And this wasn't always the case until about 3 years ago, but we've found that the cleft specialist nurses really do help to get the parents feeling confident about feeding their children before they're discharged.
You must have some lovely stories and memories, particularly from parents. I mean, for the parents to see you being able to operate on the children where otherwise that possibly, as you say, a 63-year-old man who'd never had the operation. So to be helping young children and to have mums, etc., there must be some lovely stories.
There are, and in actual fact, sometimes the parents don't recognise their children. We tend to have the baby in recovery for a good 20-30 minutes before we invite mum in, and then we ask her to sit on the bed and we put the baby in her arms. And more than once I've had mums handing the baby back to me, shaking their head, saying, "This isn't my baby." You know, I don't speak Hindu, but I've learned a few words, and they'll be saying no, and hand the baby back to me. The difference is sometimes so remarkable. But with reassurance and you know, obviously they realise after a few minutes this is their child, and that the change is very, very, very marked.
So what is it then, Julia, that keeps you going back again?
Oh, I can't really explain how it sort of grabs you in a way once you've been once and you've met the people and you understand, you know, what we do is just a drop in the ocean, but it is making some difference. And I think once you've been there once, it grabs a piece of your heart, and that remains with you. And I certainly can't wait to go each year.
And hopefully again this year you'll be able to treat how many children?
Well, we had a week in Aurangabad in September, and in 7 days we did 82 operations. Now, we won't manage at that rate for 2 weeks, but I would think 100 to 120 operations in 10 to 12 days, hopefully.
And can these be from, you know, small surgery to kind of extensive surgery that's required?
Yes, some children do have very severe deformities involving the nasal clefts as well, and some operations may take 2.5 hours. A simple lip may take up to an hour, but some of the palates can take 2 or 3 hours. And we have the surgeons who can do it. You know, certainly they're all very specialised consultants from the UK. And the problems we have is we don't always have the things that they would normally use. Certainly the anaesthetists have to, we all have to adapt sometimes.
Yes, I'm sure.
We run out of nappies, so we'll use a theatre cap and put some padding in a theatre cap and use that as a nappy if we've run out of nappies. All sorts of things that we adapt. And it's amazing how how innovative you can be when, you know, we don't have the things that you'd expect to have.
And And what difference does this make to the children's lives?
It makes a great difference. As I said before, many are malnourished before they come to us, and if they can start to eat and drink normally, they'll grow more normally. They'll be able to... Speech is a big problem for cleft palate children. Unless they learn to speak very early on using their palate, they have real severe problems in later life. So if we can treat them as early as possible, they can begin to talk normally. And again, you know, a lot of the things that we'd expect, you know, your lovely Alfie who's just been born, you'll expect him to progress normally. But there are so many barriers to children with palates and lip deformities that hopefully all of these will begin to change life for them.
Right. In some societies, any kind of deformity ostracises you within the family. Does that happen in India?
It does, but... strange enough, less so. I think Indian people often feel blessed when they have a deformed child. And sometimes, you know, it's quite surprising. There is perhaps a little bit of hesitation about changing the life of a child. They feel that this child's been given to them by God, and however, you know, deformed they are, this is how they should accept it. So sometimes quite a lot of education around that for the families to say, yes, yeah, your child is a blessing, but we can make things a little bit better for them. So yes, it's very different culturally in India.
And the website where people can find out more about the foundation?
Yes, if you just go into Google and put in the Northern Cleft Foundation, there's quite a lot of links from there, including the videos you mentioned.
Yes.
There's also a My Donate site on there for people who are interested in helping us, because we will continue to go. I know that this charity will continue to go as long as there are people who are involved in it. So yes, there are lots of links on there, and obviously my niece is a teacher at a school, and last year the school chose to have the Northern Cleft as their annual charity, and I went along and spoke to the children and explained and showed them some presentations about the children before and after, and they found that was quite a nice charity for their school because children can relate to other children, and I went in and showed them before and after pictures, and that was an excellent charity. It was a really good thing for us to do, and you know, if any schools are looking for a charity for next year, I'd be more than happy to go along and explain to them how our charity works.
Fine. Well, it may be nice if we could get you back in the studio once you return.
I would love to do that.
I would like to do that. That would be nice if you could come back in and tell us about the journey and about the number of young people that you've been able to see and help. That would be really nice. And can I thank you for coming in this morning?
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity, Hughie.
And have a safe journey.
Thank you.